Does Boulder investigate who starts these wildfires? Where is the accountability? I'm totally for strict punishments as a deterrent to smoke or starting a campfire in places like the Flatirons. This summer is going to be crazy. And the response was, this fire started at 3 a.m. on a hiking trail during a time of night with some humidity recovery and no wind, with no lightning or downed power lines. And we're expected to shrug and be like, we don't know. Yeah, we know. Some idiot had started a campfire to keep warm at some point, and either he didn't put it out correctly or it got out of hand. Looks like the same thing happened west of Berthoud. Most wildfires start in the heat of the afternoon when humidity is at its lowest and conditions are warm. Somebody else wrote, no, we don't know that at all. Could have easily been someone smoking. And finally, per a firefighter who was on the scene, the general suspicion is that it was an abandoned campsite a ways off the trail. The lengths you people will go to exonerate whoever is doing this shit is wild. Zero accountability. And that is from the Boulder subreddit this morning after a 4 a.m. wake-up call to most of West Boulder, who had to evacuate and get out of the Pine Brook neighborhood and other neighborhoods that were right along the Goat Trail just west of Newlands, including some of our clients are right there. I'm sure they had a rough night. And with that...
Goat Trail fire. Yeah.
With that, welcome to the House Einstein podcast. This is House Einstein podcast 114. I'm Osman Parvez, and with me is my co-host, Hamish Crabb.
Hello.
And we'll be talking about last night's wildfire in the news segment, which is about 3/4 of the way down the podcast topics list. Let me walk you through the rest of the list so you know what to expect for this pod. Our closing table, that's our core topic for the podcast, is all about the California listing strategy, which we're seeing once again hitting our local market, particularly in certain price ranges that are getting heated up. We're going to go into the details for how it works and the pros and cons, how it gets screwed up, and we're also possibly doing a little sidebar on charm pricing if time allows. And then for the Tales from the Trenches segment, that's where we share real stories of negotiations or deal metrics, deal dynamics, I should say. And in this case, we're going to talk about the inspection resolution, the ethical negotiation versus hardball chicken approach to getting it done. And after last night, hardball chicken seems like what our
after last night. Oh well, yeah! Oh my gosh!
After Iran, after what happened with Iran, hardball chicken should be something that all of us are familiar with how that game works. Market conditions. We're going to talk about the city of Boulder detached single-family house market with data through the end of March, and we're going to share some anecdotal information. Actually, we're mostly focused on anecdotals and less so on the data, but we could touch on the data too. And then sales of the week, we've got 5 listings to talk to you about. Let's see, do we have the addresses, Hamish?
Mm-hmm. We've got 851 14th Street, 7312 Island Circle, 3625 Nimbus Road, 2551 Ginny Way, and 2315 Forest Ave.
Yep. And a couple of those are Longmont. One of those is Longmont, one of those is Lafayette. 3 are in the city of Boulder. All are chosen because they illustrate certain price ranges or locations or property types, and sometimes just because we think it's a cool house and want to talk about the deal for that property. And then we're going to have our usual shameless self-promotion, which is a brief segment where we usually share something that deals with our buyers or sellers, but this time we're taking a little bit of an offshoot. And then in the news, well, Iran, are we still here? That was what we wrote for the bullet for that news piece, which we'll get to. And for those of you saying, why are you guys talking about Iran? I don't know how you can't talk about Iran. It affects everything in the global macro economy, as well as including interest rates. So it is in our wheelhouse, and everybody should really be talking about what we've been seeing and what the implications are going forward. We're also going to talk about the Goat Trail Fire, what happened last night. And then I've got an update for you on the Dark Horse auction.
Yeah.
That's happening. April 14th, I believe. And then we've got our Carveouts. Our Carveout segment is the very last segment of the podcast where we talk about things that just might happen to be top of mind for Hamish or I, and not necessarily anything related to real estate, although often it does, but it is not our, it might be real estate adjacent, so to speak. And then we wrap it up. So that's our table of contents for this podcast. For those of you just joining us, thank you so much. We deeply appreciate your time and attention and your feedback and your comments. And when you share this podcast with your friends, all of that has been happening. And we've certainly enjoyed all of your connection to us, all of your interactions. And particularly when you send House Einstein, the brokerage, a referral, that is so deeply appreciated. We take it very seriously, and we do our best to serve every single one of those clients. Although sometimes we have to say no as well because it's not a good fit or they're out of our wheelhouse. But we try, and we respond to each and every referral. The mission of the podcast is to entertain you.
Absolutely.
That is what our attorneys want to make abundantly clear. Do not make any major real estate or even minor real estate decisions on the basis of anything you hear in this podcast. If you're a client of the House Einstein brokerage, and that brokerage, its mission is to help you make a smarter real estate decision, please reach out directly to your House Einstein agent. You can also visit us at houseeinstein.com, get a look at our team, decide who's the best fit for you. We've got amazing agents, all of whom are seasoned, experienced, and care deeply about the work they do. And I think that we've covered our topics. We've encouraged you to reach out to House Einstein. We've got some
we
shame.
checked all our boxes. Yeah.
We'll share some shame of the week, and then and if you'd like, we're now doing the newsletter.
Not shame.
Yeah, not shame, just shameless self promo. And then if you like this type of content, consider signing up for our newsletter, because in the newsletter we talk about active listings. It's the only place that we can share our honest opinions about active listings due to the rules that regulate the MLS as well as the Realtor Code of Ethics. We're not allowed to publicly talk about active listings, although we talk about them all the time with our clients and internally with the team. But for whatever reason, for a variety of reasons, real estate agents are strongly discouraged from talking about active listings. But then you have to wonder, well, how do you know what Osmond and Hamish think about active listings?
That's a great question, listener.
How would you find out? Well, you would sign up for the newsletter, and that's one way you can start to think about whether you want to be in a client relationship with us. The newsletter is designed or targeted to prospective clients as well as our past clients and friends, and quite a few real estate agents themselves sign up for it. We don't discriminate. We're happy to have you sign up, but the rules make it so that active listings have to be discussed in the newsletter, and you'll find the sign up at houseeinstein.com. Okay.
This podcast is sponsored by House Einstein. We serve buyers and sellers in Colorado, focusing on Boulder, Denver, and several mountain resort towns, including Breckenridge and Winter Park. Our mission is simple: help you make a smarter real estate decision. You can learn more at houseeinstein.com or our YouTube channel, where you'll find videos on neighborhoods, specific listings, and much, much more.
Fantastic.
Let's get into it.
I'm imagining the Californication song, but lately, anecdotally, before the market conditions segment, we've seen quite a bit of just by the book underpriced homes, right? Like overwhelmingly underpriced homes.
Oh, hold on. I would say not a massive volume, Hamish.
Yeah.
Okay, so what Hamish is trying to allude to is that it's anecdotal, but this is our direct experience. We're seeing this with a number of clients of the brokerage that are in the, let's call it 800 to 1.2 range in Boulder, and even below 800. And what we're seeing are some agents price aggressively low, and what the end result has been a bidding war for the property that gets it sold very quickly with reduced contingencies. And I first discovered that model for real estate pricing 15 years ago when I started hearing about it from California. And in particular, the hottest markets of California, the Bay Area, where listings were dramatically underpriced. And so here's how it works. They would list it a few $100,000 below where they thought they were going to hit. And they would allow the market 2 full weeks to see the listing. They will not accept any offers for 2 full weeks. They will pre-inspect the property, and that pre-inspection report, paid for by the seller with a licensed real estate inspector, is sitting there on the counter, and digital copies are available to any prospective buyer to download and review. And during that 2-week period, if they want their own inspection, they're certainly welcome to go do that as well. But no offers are being accepted yet. So you're paying for the inspection prior to having any way to tie down the property, right? Like you don't have the right to buy it, and you're spending $500 or $600 or $800 on, or maybe more, on the inspection. And then you're submitting your offer. And the agents that work this dynamic, the California listing strategy, tell me that they don't accept offers with inspection contingencies. So if you're submitting one, they just reject it. They're not going to take it. If you want the house, you have to waive inspection, which means you're taking it as is, and you're removing one of the biggest outs in the transaction process for buyers. One of the biggest fears for sellers is you jerk them around and you tie it up, and 3 weeks later you bail out of the deal, even though there's nothing wrong with the house or all of the issues could have been resolved. You as a buyer feel like
the tales from the trenches.
We're going to talk about that. You as a buyer like have that right to do it in the contract, in the default position in the contract. But you can cross off that segment and waive the right to do that. And that's what the California's listing strategy is all about, is removing that most likely and easiest exit for buyers and strengthening the deal for the seller and slowing down the process. The seller still discloses everything. They're hiring an inspector to disclose, right? That's why they hired this person. And you, if you want to, have 2 full weeks to go get your own inspection done. It also increases skin in the game for you as a buyer, because you really want it after you spent $800 or $1,000. It's disappointing to not get it, but just like applying for college, there's a fee, right? Like you're paying some money for the right to have a seat at the bidding table. And it does suck if there's 15 offers to the table and you paid for an inspection, but most of those buyers are probably relying on the seller's inspection anyway and not paying for their own. So you don't have to pay for your own. So that's the California structure. Here in Colorado, what we've seen happen is accidental, right, or intentional without that 2-week delay period. And for some reason, the California agents are not talking to the Colorado agents, and so it's not the norm here. But what we're seeing is either intentional or accidental underpricing, but without the pre-inspection report and without giving buyers 2 full weeks to come look at the property and bring their own inspector. And so the effect of this is how we screw it up, is that it's really not enough time for buyers to feel confident enough to waive inspection because they've done their homework. And so they look for language in the contract. They write in additional provisions that try to do both, right? They try to give the seller confidence that they're not going to bail on something flippant while still protecting the buyer's right to exit if they find a deal killer. It's vague, and it now most agents put that language in, so the effectiveness of it is sort of the opposite of what you might think. If it's missing, it might disqualify you. But if it's there, it doesn't mean you're winning. It just means you've checked the box for the vast majority of sellers, that you've said something to the tune of, look, I'm serious and I'm not going to jerk you around on inspection. It also results in massive pressure on buyers, the way we've been doing it, because now you have a weekend. Sometimes the listing hits Thursday or Friday, and you have Saturday to look at it. They want the offers on Monday. Sometimes on Sunday, but typically on Monday. So you have so little time. And during that time, when you're trying to get a look at it, guess what? There's so many other people in the house too, that it feels really like this crazy experience. And that so many other people in the house, like there was one that, I can't give you the address, but I was just talking to the listing agent. He said almost 20 people were through the house during the open house alone. It was like 20 sets. Like there was people coming in side doors, people coming in sliding glass doors on the side of the house. Tracking everybody was insane during the open house.
And I was gonna say that's impossible to manage.
They ended up with like 7 or 8 offers, and hopefully it closes, right? They got pricing that was above list, reduced some of the contingencies, cash offer, but if they had done it the California way, right, the thinking goes that it would be better for all parties involved. So that's the
to an extent, right?
So there's 2 listings right now, 3 actually, because we were talking about deals that Ian also has been involved in. 3 that I know of off the top of my head that have had unintentional California style strategy happening. But
there was that one that went up for $1, and then they planned to auction it, and then they put it back on the market, I think, for like an actual list price, because nobody wanted to play ball for a $1 list price as well. Like,
yeah, I mean that's just shenanigans. To me that approach is. We've seen that. I've seen that once or twice in 20 years in Colorado, and it just seems like there's no. It doesn't really work.
Thoughtless, yeah.
It's totally thoughtless. You need to set a price that at least is close to what the seller is willing to accept it, right? So if we're representing the seller, and they say, "Look, we want to get this sold. We do not want to have months on market," I would strongly advocate the California strategy, but with that 2-week window, like you have 2 full weeks. And also with some teasing, right? Like we're about to go live with a listing this week. And if we had another week, I would say let's go live as coming soon with only the first 4 photos. No interior photos, which basically creates anticipation, right? Builds anticipation. And then you show the amazing, people are expecting it to look horrible, but it looks amazing. Now you're like, oh man, I need to, and it's underpriced. Like you're going to have a scrum of people. And one of the agents had that craziness a couple of weeks ago basically was unintentional. They did not want that to happen, but that's what happened. Was they created a lot of teasing for buyers, including our own, that were like, when are we getting the pictures? All caps email.
And that's from the like a listing standpoint, I mean, my read is like it's a very good strategy as far as you get a lot of interest quickly, and you're likely to get offers that you could probably shop between each other and go for the largest offer. But if you're representing a buyer during that, it's got to be so frustrating and so much effort just constantly, especially like you've got the coming soon with the 4 photos. So now the buyers are like, when can we see it? When can we see it? So it's like, okay, we'll go see if we can get an early showing. And then the price comes out and they're like, well, it's up for $1. What does that mean? And it just creates this massive amount of legwork, I think, for a buyer and the buyer's agent on a home that I think the listing agent and the market as a whole generally knew it's pretty dang underpriced. And it's like almost playing with people's emotions to an extent,
So pricing is a key component of a marketing strategy, right? Mm-hmm. It's not an accident what the price is set at, and setting it at $1 is one approach. Setting it intentionally below market, but maybe at a number that your client would still accept, is another approach. And the most common approach is set it at a premium to where you think it's going to sell. And that is a slight premium, right? You try to aim for what you think is pretty decent on market, but the market tends to inch upward. And that is, most of the time. There are periods where the market is headed down. I think we are past that at this point. The market is once again starting to inch slightly upward after a couple of years of down market. Look at the data from 2022 to 2025, and you'll see a really deep swing in most of our local real estate market, particularly condos and townhomes, but single-family houses too, especially at the high end. So I think we're starting to see pricing stabilize and start to move up again. So the normal approach, or the standard approach, I should say, is price where you think it should sell for, or maybe at a slight premium if it's an upward moving market. If it's a crazy moving market like March 2022, you could price really high and wait to see if the market catches up. But even then, most agents were pricing with a slight premium. And then this accidental or intentional underpricing strategy, I'm seeing among some agents that the conclusion I'm reaching, is that either they are doing it with the permission of their seller, or their seller threw out a price that the agent knew they could blow away, and they went with that list price because the seller's like, let's list it at this, and the agent's like, absolutely, that sounds great, because they know they're going to sell it right away, and they're gonna use that low price to remove contingencies and get multiple offers. That's my gut instinct, my suspicion of others. I don't know that to be a fact. It could just be that they felt that was the right price. They did their analysis. That's what it said. But when I see a listing that looks like it's 100,000 or 150,000 or 200,000 below where it should land, I'm kind of shocked. I'm like, okay, what is going on with this listing? Is something seriously wrong with it, or are they doing the California model without the key?
The Colorado model.
Well, the Colorado, they're doing an accidental California. Yeah, like a bad hybrid, right? They're not giving 2 full weeks on market. They're not pre-inspecting, and they're not encouraging buyers to have their own inspection before offering, and they're also not enforcing the no inspection contingency rule. So the net effect is a much higher percentages of these listings that are under high pressure end up coming back to market because the buyer gets cold feet. It's sort of like when you're shopping on an auction website and you submit an offer that's higher than you really wanted to go. You increase cold feet and regret. Yeah. And the contract to buy and sell in Colorado has a lot of outs. And if they haven't waived inspection, they haven't waived their easiest exit. And they can come up with all sorts of reasons they want out. So if we could look at the data, but I'm guessing it's like 20% of listings in a normal market when under high pressure, or even not, sometimes just bail. The buyer bails and they have an issue with the house that maybe is solvable, maybe is not, but they decide it's just not the right house for them. And often it's because they felt a lot of pressure to make that offer that first weekend.
Yeah. It doesn't create the most trusting relationship between like a buyer and a seller in a transaction. And California famously has like an insane housing market, and they can get away with kind of running it like this. And Colorado we're going to talk about bidding wars in the 800 to 1.2 range and the market conditions, but I don't necessarily think, I'm not a fan of it. I really like it.
Keep going. I want to hear why do you think it's not Why do you think it's not fair?
I think it's, but like by the letter of the law and everything, it's totally fine, right? Like, and you can even go to your seller and you can say, "Hey, I know you won't take anything less than 1.2, but we're gonna put it up for 900 because you don't have to accept any offers. So we'll see what we get, and we're bound to get something, and we can shop it up, and that's all totally above board and everything. But I think it starts to get to a point where it's kind of like middle finger to the buyers. And granted, right, the sellers have zero, damn near leverage while under contract, and the buyers have the majority of it. But the sellers have the inventory; they've got the product, and they can kind of control the supply. So I'm thinking of it more from like a balance in a power play kind of dynamic, right? And it's this kind of method is totally just the sellers being like, these are the breaks, and deal with it, buyers.
I'm going to disagree with you, Hamish, and this
so?
is why I think so. Well, that's okay. We can disagree.
No, yeah.
And I think where we do agree is we want balance of power in the negotiation between buyers and sellers in a way that is fair to everybody. I'm reminded of a big piece of art over the conference room table at the last investment firm I worked for, and the art said, if the deal doesn't work for everybody, there's no deal. Mm-hmm. And it was a good reminder for everyone in the room to think about that when they're sitting there trying to negotiate. Like, if you're not thinking about the other party's needs, you're probably not going to reach a point where everyone is willing to accept this deal. You have to work together to figure out how to get past each other's hurdles and each other's deal points. And right now, the leverage in the way the standard Colorado contract to buy and sell is written is that it strongly favors the buyer.
Super.
And so the seller gets something that basically is the equivalent of caveat emptor. The house is sold as is, where is, and with all conditions, right? That's the way a house is sold. Of course, if you failed to disclose, you're in a lot of trouble. right? Which sometimes catches people, but the buyer gets a surprising number of ways they can exit. And the seller has no ways they can exit. And the buyer, the way the default or standard verbiage, the boilerplate is written in the Colorado contract to buy and sell, is that the buyer can decide they don't like the color of the exterior. They can decide that for any reason whatsoever, it has failed inspection, whether or not they even paid for an inspection, and check that box inspection and walk away. It failed their inspection. They don't need to explain themselves. And if they've bailed for a fickle reason, their agent should stop talking, because what they don't want to say is, well, my buyers just changed their mind, because that will likely cause the seller to get angry and upset and try to claim the earnest money. The most the buyer has at risk is the earnest money, which is a trivially small portion of the property's value. The most the seller has at risk is wasting weeks on market, and now buyer number one bails. God forbid, buyer number two bails, right? This sometimes happens where people got two fickle buyers. And instead of thinking there was something wrong with the buyer, the market immediately concludes there's something wrong with the house. And it's very rare that you will get to the same price point. So the difference, the delta in the earnest money that the earnest money provided, if you could even claim it, which most of the time you can't. Like if the buyer says, I'm just,
covers
even if
the
buyer
difference
says,
from the loss.
Take my earnest money, I'm walking out. That number is not going to cover the taint that has happened to your listing from a buyer bailing out. So the seller once you're under contract, the seller has so little leverage in this process that it is very challenging. And the heartache they often feel is around inspections, which we're going to get to. But this approach actually more fairly balances it. It forces buyers to have at least some skin in the game, right? That what doesn't force
through
them to,
inspection.
It encourages them to pay for an inspection. If the seller has fully disclosed and didn't hide anything or try to influence the inspector with a brown paper bag full of cash, in theory, the inspection is done by a reputable inspection company, and the buyer didn't have one weekend to decide. They had 2 full weeks to look at the listing, bring their buddy the contractor, bring their architect, review the code that might govern the restrictions on the property in the future, right? Pay for a sewer scope if they don't feel comfortable with the inspection report. Pay for a foundation evaluation if that's what they want, or an HVAC contract. Anybody you want. The listing agent will let you schedule a visit, and you can and investigate and do your due diligence to your heart's content, but you have not locked down the property, so that money may not be recouped. And the money, by the way, may not be recouped anyway. So here's the thing, even if you do it the other way, you're under contract and now you've got binding rights to purchase the property and you spend $1,000 on due diligence, the seller can still say, go take a hike. So it's not like that $1,000 of due diligence cost is absolutely guaranteed to be returned to you or protected, because the seller could just say, no, thank you. And they could, they likely won't. Reasonable sellers will try to work with you. But this approach, the California strategy, I think more fairly balances these risks, particularly if you're in a situation where you got to get it sold. You don't want to try the market plus pricing strategy where you go 2 or 3% below what you think is market value based on analysis. Instead, you go 5 to 7% below market value and try to get it sold fast, remove contingencies, get that cash offer. And like kids playing soccer ball, like children playing soccer ball, they play herd ball. Like they all go to that one shiny object on the field, which is the one ball that got thrown in that's ridiculously underpriced, and everyone wants a piece of it, as long as the price isn't $1, which is insulting, right? The price is actually a reasonable number, but low, and the house was properly prepped, you're going to sell it fast. So I like the California strategy, but it's not without risk. And one thing that the seller needs to understand is you could, if it doesn't sell right away, you could go back to premium pricing. I would encourage you to take it off the market, address a few things. At
least refresh it,
and then bring it back at market price, but be prepared for a really long listing period if that's what you thought you were going to do. And you now have an explanation point. Why did you price it 50 or 100 grand below 6 months ago? That's a tougher explanation. So there is some risk to doing this, but I think that if you really understand the comps and the market, like I wouldn't do this. So we have a listing likely coming next year, and I've had this conversation with the seller that his property appeals to maybe 5% of the buyers that are out there, and it's a niche. And I wouldn't do this with a niche listing. because you may get, that might just be about waiting for the right buyer to suddenly show up. Like we had a condo last year or 2 years ago that was exactly that. It was a niche. It was priced right, marketed right, staged right. Like we spent a bunch of money boosting ads all over the place. We got thousands of views, but there were no buyers because it's such a niche product. And I wouldn't do that with niche listings, but for something that appeals to 80% of the market, right?
Yeah.
Then I think it's not exactly a no-brainer, but it's an intelligent approach to do it this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think, and like for the most part, I really do agree with what you're saying, and I think we're overlapping on a lot of it. My larger concern is more or less like, if you can pre-inspect your property and you're going, well, as is, and it's under market, the buyer really loses pretty much any option to have things corrected, which is, I mean, essentially the same way as saying as is beforehand. But yeah, I don't know. Most of my point still stands. Like, it's more of a power thing. I don't disagree that it's a bad idea for a seller. I think in many cases, and totally good point on the niches as well. But in many cases, it's a strong option for a seller because it gets a lot of attention. And I think buyers that, I mean, we know, and we have had some buyers that like to sit and kind of see the property pass before them. But if you price it low enough to where anybody or any buyer might be tempted enough to write an offer, then you're at least going to garner an attention or an offer that your seller may accept, right? So yeah, I see the benefit to it 100%. I don't know.
The reason that agents don't do it is it's because it's not the norm. Mm. Just like gazumping clauses are the norm in the UK, they're virtually unheard of here.
It's gazumping, yeah.
I've only written one contract with a gazumping clause, and we lost. So gazumping is, my understanding is, it's very common in the UK, and this structure allows the seller to continue to market the home and sell it to another buyer if they get a better price. And in exchange, they refund not just the earnest money, but a reasonable amount of money in due diligence costs.
Okay.
Right? And that's what we negotiated on a house. This is like 7 years ago. And it had been on the market a really long time. And so we lowballed them. And they said, we don't really want to do that. This number's way too low. And we went back and forth. And after a few days, they agreed to accept our offer, provided they got to continue to market the home during the inspection period. And if they found a better offer, they could push our buyer out as long as they refunded the buyer's inspection costs. Everyone agreed to it. And the day of the inspection objection or resolution, it was one of those deadlines, the last possible day, somebody came in with a better offer and blew my buyer out, and we got our due diligence costs back. I didn't get the value of my time back. The buyer was really bummed because they had written the best offer they could afford. They weren't just lowballing because they were trying to steal the house. Just to get a deal. They were lowballing because that's what they could afford, and they got bumped out by somebody with more money, and they got gazumped. That's what it's called. And so we don't have that as a standard either, but that doesn't mean you can't use it as a negotiation tool. And you can certainly do the California listing strategy here in Colorado, but I really think it needs to be carefully discussed and understood between client and agent. The full trade-offs are fully known. Like, they really need to understand it and how it's being communicated, because it is quite different. Yeah. But once it got established, I'm sure it would be everywhere because it just makes more sense. And right now, the evidence for why the contract is unbalanced is because of how often agents are using the additional provisions as a segment to start to dial back the inspection. Like, everyone knows the inspection it gives them, the buyer, way too many rights. And so we're going to use some vague language to try to dial it back and move the chips a little closer to the seller's side of the table. Maybe that's not the right analogy. Move the scales, way a little more toward the sell side. And so it's well known. I don't know why the Real Estate Commission doesn't do something about it, but this is the market doing something about it.
Yeah.
Particularly in heated segments of the market, it makes a lot of sense, and we offer it as an option. But it scares sellers because they're like, wait a minute, if market value is $1 million, you want me to list it at 900? Like, what happens if we don't get any offers that first weekend?
There's, I think, kind of, we talked about whisper listings and stuff a little bit a while ago, and one of the kind of implicit sells to whisper listings is that you're able to test the market before you get the days on market branding. And there is such a stigma to listings that have been on the market for a long time, or listings that have come back on the market after being under contract. And it's the psychology that everybody knows about, but it's really driving things, right? Where if a buyer is backing out because they lost financing or their job, or they decided to loan a car before they bought the house.
Change their credit rating.
Yeah. But like, and then the house comes back on the market. You just said it, a couple minutes ago. People are going to look at the house as though it's the issue and not a possible fault of the buyer. And yeah, I mean, in the context of everything, it all makes sense. I think I'm just a little bit... There's a lot of buyer distrust towards sellers, and there are sellers that act poorly. But at the same time, I don't think the stigma for like a home that's been on the market for so long is necessarily deserved, nor a home that's come back on the market after being under contract. And I'm more feeling things than I'm talking about strategy or anything, but it's more of a conversation than anything. Because the reality is the reality of it, right?
I was just talking to somebody about, where was this person? It was somebody whose grandmother had finally passed away in her 90s. Mm-hmm. And she had outlived 3 husbands. Right? And it sends a certain, the outliving
This seems really familiar, or like recent,
one of them.
Right?
Let's say, let me change the story a little bit, because this is a little bit an adjustment. Let's say you run into somebody who's been divorced 3 times. Do you blame do you blame the husbands that they've divorced, or the wives they've divorced, or do you blame, is this a person that's prone to divorce? And I feel like there's, maybe I'm stretching this analogy a little bit, but
no, I think it's got weight, right? Like, I totally understand the point.
If you see a house that has had 3 different buyers run away and not commit to it, you reach certain conclusions about that house, even though they may be unjustified. And so I think it's important to have an agent that's honest with you when they're representing you about what's actually right and wrong with this house. Yeah. And occasionally you see houses that are just ignored by the market because of timing. There was a better house that first 2 weekends it listed at better pricing, and now it's 3 weeks on market, and every buyer thinks there's something wrong with it, when actually it was just bad timing. And we've had that listing where we listed on like a football weekend, right? Or we listed on a holiday weekend and nothing was happening. In fact, we just delayed a listing a week because of a holiday weekend. Because listing on Easter weekend is not necessarily a great idea. People have family plans, so you're likely going to lose quite a few potential buyers. Yeah. I mean, I'm grateful they did, because we got to spend time with our family. But all of these decisions are decisions that should be discussed with your agent. And hopefully your agent understands these different models for pricing, at least these basic 3. And the majority of people are going to choose the market value plus. In a downward moving market, they should be choosing market value minus. And it's really quite a frustrating experience for the agents involved that have a weekend to go look at it, massive pressure to get that offer in, ruin their whole weekend, and had no chance at all to even have skin in the game. Instead of 2 weeks to go look at it, and time to ask, how many offers have you gotten? And if I submit an offer at 1.2, is that even going to be competitive? And if it's a professional listing agent who values their colleagues, they're going to say, your offer is really not going to be close at 1.2. We have really strong offers above that. So if that's your max, you might as well save yourself some time. And that's the kind of thing you have time to do if you have 2 weeks to work on this negotiation. But if you have all offers due on Monday at noon and you have 15 offers coming in, you do not have time to negotiate with each of these offers and guide and advise these agents. It's very disrespectful. Yeah, that's the third people that are involved in this are the agents. It's massively disrespectful to the agents involved. I mean, we are lucky, and most of the agents on the team, they don't have kids, And so we're not as tied to stuff going on with kids over the weekends. But those agents that have kids, particularly younger kids, are at a big disadvantage to this approach to this underpriced, get it done in a weekend style. So and maybe that's okay for buyers and sellers. They don't care that their agents have to deal with it. Agents are paid a lot of money. They should be responsive. They should have systems to deal with showing availability on a hot weekend or a weekend where they have conflicts. They need to have coverage. That's part of the deal.
No, and I think the 2 weeks makes it far more fair and less high pressure. And I guess that's the whole rub of why we're talking about this, right? Is that it's being done wrong in the instances that we're seeing it, and given the 2 weeks is generally not the worst.
Okay, Hamish, tell us about charm pricing. Let's do our quick sidebar.
Before I jump in too much, I don't know if you can hear it, but I'm very much on the tail end of a cold, and I just wanted to apologize. I forgot to mention at the intro, but if you hear any snuffles or the occasional cough, I'm trying to mute the mic as I do that. But yeah, I'm still working on the recovery here. Charm pricing, that's where you do like $2.99 or $6.95, $900 for a house or something like that. Not necessarily in the same boat as the California listing strategy, but we've seen it here and there, and I think there's some weight to listing in a charm pricing way, especially when you've got buyers that have their search alerts segmented by tranches, right? Like if a buyer is looking 1.800 to 1.2, and you wanted to list your house at like 1.25, you're going to miss that. So you do 1.19, so on.
Okay, well, so I guess I agree with you here, but with a slight distinction. Mm-hmm. And that charm pricing is usually pricing that ends in a 9 or a 5, right? Like it's sort of rounded up almost. Let's say you have a $2 million listing, and instead of listing it at $2 million, you list it at 1,999. Yeah. And with buyers, we don't have that conversation the same way. If a buyer is searching, this tranche pricing is pricing intelligently to where the market and where buyers are looking. And the higher up you go in price, the more price elasticity buyers have. So the ranges get bigger. So if you have, for example, if you have a buyer looking in the 2 million zone, they're probably looking at everything from 1.5 to 3, right? But if you have a buyer that can spend 750, they're probably looking at 700 to 775, right? Their zones are much tighter. But charm pricing, I think, is actually something that brings up a connotation of discount. And this is when you end in a 9 or a 5. Yeah, there's a cheapness to it. And it makes you feel like you're in Walmart or in Costco. And I love Costco. Not so much Walmart, but I love Costco for a lot of reasons. But I don't think you should price a luxury listing or any listing with charm pricing. But with tranche pricing, right? If you're on the edge of a big tranche, like the $3 million tranche we've talked about repeatedly, because it shifts so dramatically that if you're going to compete in the $3 million zone, you're also competing with $3.5 and $4 million houses, and there are a ton of them on the market right now. But if you are priced at 2.9, you are going to be the best one in that $2.5 to $3 million range, or 2.95, in which case you may want to just nudge it a little below 3, so you're not competing with those $3+ million homes. And so that kind of conversation is the very nitty-gritty, the granularity when it comes to pricing a listing. But it's another important conversation that, in addition to, the broad target of where you're aiming to list price your home and how you want to handle the negotiation and marketing and negotiation strategies, you also want to get granular if you happen to be zoning in right into one of those big round numbers. It's interesting, as I asked while we're talking, I asked Claude what the top 20 luxury cars, and how many of them, what is the MSRP?
Do they even have an MSRP? I guess they.
What percentage of these cars exhibit charm pricing? Let's see what it says. Let's let it think. At the end of the day, the client decides, but they usually make their decision, Hamish, on the recommendation of their agent. And I think it's really important to have these types of conversations because it's not just about so what happens is people call an agent and they're like, what do you think I should list at? And they often, how that, that price affects the seller, they often just go with the one that has the most bravado and the highest price, right? So it's like the opposite of the X and Y axis for which offer in a multiple offer scenario gets chosen. In a multiple offer scenario, it's highest price, most highest probability of closing. In a listing scenario, in the absence of intelligent metrics to evaluate agents, which frankly that's the problem in our business, they end up choosing the one that throws out the highest price and has the highest ego, bravado, salesiness,
confidence with the delivery.
Perceived confidence times highest price equals the most likely agent that's selected, with some additional factors like was it recommended by a friend, or how many times have I seen this face on a grocery cart store, right? Like subconsciously that's going to make you think this person must be really successful because their face is all over the grocery cart. It doesn't actually mean anything. You could pay you pay to have your face on the grocery cart, but subconsciously it impacts the sense of credibility for mid-range homes, less so for luxury homes. Social proof, exactly. All right, so Claude says 5 out of 20, or roughly 25% of luxury cars use rounder prestige pricing, numbers ending in 0, 50, or 500, which is deliberate. In luxury goods, rounded numbers signal confidence and premium positioning. A $50,000 price says this is exactly what we say it is, versus $49,995 signals you're trying to make something look cheaper than it is, which could actually undermine a luxury brand. So there you go. You don't want to use charm. You want to use prestige pricing. That totally makes sense. Radical agreement with Claude. Boy, I think Claude doesn't have a real estate license, huh?
Yet.
Okay, well, we need to move on, Hamish.
I think this horse is dead.
This horse is dead. We've covered the closing table and the California listing strategy. The next thing we're going to do is illustrate the next phase, and that is the negotiation strategy over inspection in particular, and the most common approaches to how to handle inspection objections. And the first one I want to call hardball chicken. And hardball chicken is more typical when it's an unattached investment-oriented buyer. And I've been on the listing side of this, where we went under contract at a very reasonable number very quickly, sometimes full list. And then they do their inspection and they come up with an inspection objection that is extreme, right? They give you the whole inspection report as the inspection objection, and they say, if you want us to close, we're going to need $50,000 below this number because of all these problems. And if you say no, they're like, fine, we walk away. And they play, the chicken part is the deadlines involved. And so sometimes I've seen either side capitulate at the very last minute and say, oh, forget it, we'll just do it. And that's what some of these buyers are hoping, is that the seller doesn't want to go back to market. They felt really good at the initial offer. They've got this laundry list of things wrong with their house, so their emotional roller coaster has just dived low, right? Because they feel bad about all these things that are wrong with the house. They also are angry at the potential buyer.
Maybe they've already spent the money that they're anticipating on getting.
And all they have to do is agree to $50,000 to make this go away, and they're done. So this approach works for some types of, typically an investor that's unethical, that's playing this game quite deliberately. And I mean, sometimes it's not a laundry. I mean, there's other ways to play hardball chicken, right? We've had buyers that want to bail on things that don't normally come up on inspections, like squeaky floors, and we're serious about it. And because it really mattered to them, it really mattered to us. But we had to tell the other side who was livid that we're objecting to squeaky floors, that it doesn't matter what we're objecting to. This is their issue. It's real.
And they would have bounced. Yeah, they would have backed out.
They are actually willing to bounce. So the only way to play hardball chicken is if you're really willing to exit on the basis of, and you have an agent that's willing to play this game, okay? Like, we typically don't go for this. When we
like to have that conversation in advance,
we kind of want to set expectations for how to handle inspections while we're looking at homes, right? Before we've even written the offer. let's set expectations for how inspections are handled, because what it's not is an attempt to massively claw back the price on visible and obvious things that are often related to the age of the home that are common with every home this age. And so what usually is helpful there is a distinction between an upgrade and a repair for something that was newly discovered. A repair for something that's significant and newly discovered is broadly considered ethical and reasonable. And so the other approach, the ethical negotiation approach that I want to highlight, is where you didn't know these things when you wrote the offer. You paid for an inspection. They revealed these things that are significant, need to be addressed. With things like HVAC systems and roofs, our usual guideline is that where are we with respect to the half-life of these systems?
Yeah.
If we're at half-life or better, it's usually not an inspection objection. If it's less than half-life, it's usually like, it's at the end of its life. We weren't expecting a brand new furnace or a brand new roof, but we should get at least half the cost of that, because our expectation
it's lived
was
its lifespan, right?
It should have half of its life left, these systems, when we wrote the offer. I've had 0 listing agents push back on that logic. 0. They're okay. It sounds reasonable. It passes the sniff test, and we usually get the biggest credits or repairs when we approach it that way. Hardball chicken is like an all or lose game, and you may or may not have it work. But it also, look, Boulder is a really small market. Word gets out, and an individual buyer can sometimes be known in our community for playing this game. So this game. There's nothing in the contract that says the seller has to keep your offer confidential. They can take your offer and publish it online, and you have, what are you going to do about it? There's nothing in there that says this contract shall not be published online. And if you acted like a jerk through the purchase process and ran away, they could tell their whole office, and they often do, that I had this buyer who acted like a total jerk and behaved this way, and I can't believe it, and you should know about this person running around playing hardball chicken.
So I remember there was this, we had this deal a while ago, and we submitted our inspection objection. And we're not going to go too crazy into the details or what the contents was, but it was a fair amount, and I think upon glance it's like, wow, this is a lot, but when you think about it, it's, pretty reasonable. And the listing agent asked you, I think Osman, his words were like, are your buyers going to terminate? Right? Is that the listing agent kind of getting an idea of, is this a hard ball, or are we going to, is that what, it was like a vibe check.
Yeah, I mean, this is the soft side of negotiation. Every negotiation, but particularly the inspection process, you get an interpretation of every single thing the buyer's agent says. And asking that question is actually really loaded and and intended to understand, okay, so there's a range of acceptable responses that the seller is about to make in response to an inspection objection. If the buyer's agent says, look, these issues are real, we really would like to resolve them in a way that's fair to buyers and sellers, if they don't feel like it's fair, they're going to terminate. That's the professional answer. And if the answer is, oh my God, they love this house. They love this house so much. They're just so disappointed these issues came up. They don't really know what to do about it. Boy, that also tells them that tells the listing agent this person's emotionally attached.
Yeah.
And the response is now going to be on the lower end of the range. But now let's do the opposite side. Look, they've told me if they don't get $50,000 out of your seller, they're going to walk, period. They've done it before. I don't care. You could throw me under the bus. It doesn't matter. We need the $50,000 or they're walking. Make a decision. Make a business decision. You might have a business decision to make.
Time to be a grown up.
I've had agents say that to me. They're like, look, if you think if to keep this deal together, you got to throw $5,000 in this, maybe you should take it out of your commission and make a business decision if this client is so difficult. I'm like, great. That's really shady. And really slimy in terms of how you think about your colleagues. But I've had agents say that to me. And our business approach, by the way, is we don't throw in commission to solve inspection issues. They're completely
I feel like that gets weedy quick.
Isolated and siloed. Yeah. Like, we're not going to do it. So if the deal falls apart over that, then it falls apart over that. But it's not our business practice to do that. So anyway, there are multiple approaches to inspection. Good agents help their clients at least understand the norms and try to get them the most we can to resolve real issues on inspection and deal with clients that sometimes just want to play hardball chicken over not real issues to get a big credit. And understanding who you're working with and the agent in particular. Okay, because some agents, particularly rookies...
I mean, when they've got the reputation. Oh, okay, yeah.
Rookies will just get steamrolled by their more experienced client who's never... Maybe they bought 3 or 4 houses in their lifetime, but they're spending a few $1,000,000 and they think that means something in Boulder, and so they want this entire inspection list addressed, and they insist on it, and meanwhile there's backup offers coming in and they don't believe it. Well, they likely are going to learn a hard lesson. And an experienced agent is going to sound more credible that they've done this before. And if you really want a decent credit, let's focus on 3 or 4 big ticket items. And then maybe you'll get 2 or 3 of them. But don't throw a bunch of trivial crap in there because the seller is going to fixate and get emotionally inflamed by you throwing in a laundry list of trivial items when really it was 3 or 4 big ones. So having done this negotiation literally hundreds of times, there are approaches that work better than others. And knowing your counterparty's experience in negotiation, knowing how to answer questions in ways that don't compromise your client, knowing what questions to ask the other side.
It's pretty key.
It's all super important. It's soft skills, but we're talking about tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars that get negotiated over inspection issues, especially big ticket items like EFIS corrections can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's a big deal.
Squeaky floor.
And as usual, the takeaway is choose your agent carefully. And also, agents, choose your client carefully. Don't just choose
increasingly so. To wrap this up, have you heard of a client where you've had local agents be like, "Yo, this client is shady," or like bad faith? Like I've said no, we've all turned them down. Dang, yeah. I mean, I don't know how much else you can say, but like for the listeners, he's nodding.
Yeah, I'm nodding. It's not common, but there are people that are very entitled and very aggressive, and that approach doesn't work well in the city of Boulder. It doesn't work well because this is a very, like, when I moved here from New York City, I in the investment banking world, I thought that was the best way to negotiate. And it works in that environment. It doesn't work very well in an environment where people are more cordial, where agents steer deals, where we do 80% of the agents do deals with each other over and over and over again. We know each other. So it doesn't mean we always like each other, but we know each other. We know our negotiation styles. We know who's ethical and who's not. We're like, Santa Claus knows who's been naughty and nice. Every agent has, like, in the back of their head a list of, okay, I know how you roll now.
Oh boy, it's an offer from John Hunt. I don't know. John Snow.
Yeah, these are made up names.
John Doe. That's it. Yeah.
Jon Snow is from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I don't know who John Hunt is.
I don't know either. That's a good... Yeah, that's not a real person.
Yeah. Okay, great. I just want to make it abundantly clear.
No, I'm a little
concerned. Names you threw out
Yeah.
are not names, are agents I know.
Yeah, John Hunt is a real estate... I don't know. Florida. Okay, yeah, we're fine.
Great. Let's move on, Hamish, to talk about market conditions.
Shall we? It's all kind of wrapped into one. This is a very cohesive podcast today. Topics-wise.
I think after 100 podcasts, we're getting a little better, huh?
10,000 hours.
Okay. So this market segment, agents on the team, including myself, are seeing a lot of bidding wars. We're seeing some intentional or unintentional underpricing. And we are dealing with clients that are getting frustrated because the mental model for the house that matches this price range is not what's showing up. We're seeing homes that are not even that great get bidding wars. So 800,000 to 1.2-ish is that range. And I'm going to do it live. Let's look at what market data looks like for that particular range. And I'm not going to show this on the screen because there's probably some agreement in the MLS that says I should not screen share with the world. So we're not going to screen share, but you could just imagine I'm drawing a map around Boulder proper. And I say Boulder proper because there are parts of Boulder that, like Gun Barrel, are in the city of Boulder, but aren't really Boulder proper. There is some little mosaic stuff toward the northeast where the airport is that most people think of that's Boulder, but then the foothills, generally not Boulder. So imagine a map that I've drawn that is more or less Boulder proper.
I think and also we're speaking to like anecdotally, so where we're seeing our clients and where we're seeing the houses, right, get this action.
Yeah, but I'm pulling up actual data in real time, Hamish, so it's no longer anecdotal, right?
We're getting
I'm looking
for real.
well, this is legit. Like, how many houses currently are on the market in Boulder proper in this 800 to 1.2 range? There are 47. So what's your guess for how many are under contract?
25.
Nope, 17. Surprisingly lower than you would have thought. 36%. So that doesn't scream that it should be bidding war central, right? Because at least so far the data doesn't support what we're seeing anecdotally. But when we look at those as a mass, there's not that many, 47. Let's start to narrow it down a little bit. And first thing we narrow down is beds and baths. So we want at least a 3-3, right? That's what most people want. And we want at least...
Let's say 3-2.
2 garage spaces. I think most people would prefer to have 3 because they want to have a primary bedroom with a primary bath. They want the kids to have their own bathroom. And then they want a guest bath on the main. So 3-3 is sort of the adult minimum. And for most people, don't take it the wrong way, but most people
you're still an adult, even if you have 2 bathrooms.
Okay. Or 1 bathroom. Okay, so what do you see? You see 16 listings when you say 3-3 minimum with a 2-car attached or detached garage. 16 total. And of those 16, what percentage are under contract? 6. So the statistics are not materially... Well, actually, they're quite a bit different. 6 out of 16 is 38%. So not massively better. But surprising to see that many bidding wars when we're seeing less than 50%, under contract. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised, to be quite honest with you. I would have expected it to look different than that. Let me make sure this map is working. The map is on. Okay, so now let's do how many sold.
I am thinking
price range. Hold on, let me just do this last piece.
Yeah.
Let me just do this last piece. So the last 3 months, let's just look at how many sold that are matching these criteria. City of Boulder proper, at least 3 beds, at least 3 baths, and at least a 2-car garage. You get 9 sales. Of those 9 in 3 months, what number went over list? Let me just do it really quick. One went over. 2, 3, 4. 4 went for more than list. 4 out of 9, so almost half. One of them went for full list price.
Okay, that's starting to show it.
The rest sold at a discount. So
I am thinking of the Martin Acres Ranch, and that layout typically only has 2 bathrooms at most.
True. Unless it has a basement.
Get some. Yeah, but even then, I can't dox your Martin Acres home, but there's one there that's 1 bath for 4 beds, but no basement.
What else is interesting as I look through this is that very few sold for substantially more than list. It looks like the one that sold the most over list, again, this is City of Boulder, was 537 Blackhawk, sold for $27,000 over list. It's a 4-bedroom, 3 baths, 7,800 square foot, Keewaydon, bi-level. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We showed this. We offered on it.
Yep. And the next best was 210 Manhattan, that sold for $20,000 over list. So, okay, so
and those
about
were the
half,
ones we were involved in.
half are selling for list or more. So that that should set some guidelines, but generally the ones that are going for over list are not necessarily mass. $20,000 or $25,000 over list on $1 million asset is a trivial amount of money if that got the deal done. So that's what we're seeing, and your mileage, as they say, may vary.
Yeah, It's a helpful analysis to do. It's something we did, Oz, when you were helping me purchase my home, is we noticed that the property type that I was searching for went relatively quick and for over list. So we looked at, some recent data and saw what percentage over it was. So when the next offer came around, I was able to be in the same playing field, especially since in my market there were a few agents that just wouldn't respond or were able to give you any guidance on how much to offer. So
my theory is people just don't want to feel stupid, right? Like they want to know what's the median over list when a property goes over list. If we're convinced we're going over list, what's the typical over list? It doesn't mean that there won't be somebody out there, we like to call these people the dumb money, that just throw a crazy number out there because they have to have the house. In which case, you didn't lose. You won by being disciplined, right? Somebody else had to have it. They grossly overpaid. That sucks. But at least you weren't that person competing with it. And you walked away with discipline. There's always another house. But having at least some guidance on where to go above list, if it's going over list at all. If it's been on the market a few weeks, it should be selling for a discount, not over list. And then there's a second set of guidelines. Like what's the median under list for homes that have been on the market for a few months. And so that, or a few weeks. And that is really useful data for buyers to have. It gives them guidance so that, honestly, it's just they don't feel dumb, right? No one wants to pay more than they had to pay for a house, and sellers don't want to get fleeced either. So the medians in this data are really, the statistics in this data are really useful.
Yeah.
Okay, sales of the week.
Oh, cool. Let me pull those open. Thank you for checking them in the show notes, sir.
Yep, makes it a little bit faster.
Yeah.
And I just had this cart open, but I guess I have to open it again. Hold on a second. Sales of the week. Our first one is 851 14th Street. And I know this listing really well because it has been on the market a long, long time. And we saw it with the Hearth and Stone luxury home tour. The Hearth and Stone organization is no longer, but that effort of bringing agents together and viewing homes was well worth it, and I'm sad to see that organization go. But this house was one of the listings we saw back, 2023 or 24. But it hit the market originally in 2023 at 3.95, and then the seller chased it down. They by the end of 2024, they had cut the price all the way down to 3.5, $500,000 off. And then at the end of 2025, it had dropped to $3 million, and I think they fired their agent. And then the price got cut again. The price stayed at 2.995. So a little less than $1 million below the original starting point on the house is where it eventually sold. I love this historic house. It is absolutely gorgeous, generously sized with the correct, if you will, layout of what most buyers prefer. 4 bedrooms on the upper, 1 in the basement, a 3-car detached garage, and a location that is a little close to CU. Okay, to be quite frank, you might get some students noise, some typical student property type crime, but it also is surrounded by historic homes, and you're really close to Chautauqua. It's a great spot. I would have bought this house all day long, other than I thought the price was too high. And what's really kind of funny about it is now it's being, like, the agent's really, happy that she sold it very quickly. Supposedly sold during their pre-marketing of the home. And maybe they deserve that because it had been at 2.995 last October. But it's not like the whole market didn't see it. It's just that the market, I think this might have been just the right buyer eventually showed up. Getting it under $3 million was an important piece. They didn't do that till last October. And October, as everybody knows, everyone should know, is a horrible time to list a house. So you're dealing with the bargain shoppers in the fourth quarter,
season,
including myself. And when they pulled it off, right, they yanked it at the early part of December. They brought it back 3 months later, and the agent's currently saying it was the pre-marketing that got it done so fast, but I think it's just timing. It's a great house, though, 100%. A home that I would have bought all day long. And I'm happy for the buyer. I'm happy for the seller that they got it done. Feel bad for the first agent. I don't think it was their fault. But it is what it is. And so that's, you take your licks in this business. But really, they should have priced it at just under $3 million right from the start. Like, that should have been the original list price, and it probably would have sold much faster. Yep.
It's a very large home for a historic. And, it just looks so comfortable. Like,
I love this house.
Cozy. Yeah. Go ahead.
Look, it's a style thing, okay? Not everyone's into historic houses. Obviously, I'm into historic houses. I think that they never go out of style. What else is really odd about this listing, Hamish, is the
photos?
AI.
Do you think it is?
Oh, 100%. Hey, Hamish, look at the photo stack.
The thing about AI is, like, usually you can see, like, weirdness. Like, it's never 100%. But then there's the photo of, I think it's a Jack and Jill vanity. And
are you looking at the same photos I'm looking at? Like, they literally have completely repainted the interior with AI.
Yeah, but are we just using AI as a blanket term, or because I'm sure they're using some sort of program, but I don't know if it's AI, and I'm wondering, like, some of this looks almost as though they actually just painted over all the wood.
It says rendering in the.
Yeah.
It says rendering, proposed neutral trim refresh, actual dark stain remains. Staging furniture has been removed and shows vacant. So it was real staging furniture, supposedly.
Oh, there's some virtual here for sure.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's 100% for sure. So I don't know about this, like, fake update thing that they did. I got mixed feelings about that. Maybe
that's certainly polarizing. You'll see, like, pictures on Facebook that circulate of, like, look how they massacred my boy, and it's like a historical home that's, they got rid of all the wood grain and everything.
That's better than actually doing it, right? Like, I think
agree.
that, and it's certainly cheaper to pretend to paint all the trim and the walls neutral colors, and they're disclosing it in the photos that it doesn't look like this. So unless the buyer has got a visual disability, it's not like, could you sue them for this? I don't think so. I don't know. It's an interesting idea. Maybe we should talk about it for one of our upcoming listings. Is the update just paint update?
Yeah, we should reach out to the listing agent if you can secret shop or find out what they used.
Yeah, I could call her.
Yeah,
see what they used.
Sweet.
Okay. We could also test it, Hamish, with just running it through Photoshop and see what Photoshop's AI does. Like, give it in the contextual text bar, tell it to make it white.
I think it'll change. It does weird stuff still.
Okay.
It's totally worth a shot, but yeah.
Yeah, let me know. All right, our next listing is 7312 Island Circle. And this listing, hold on, were you done with the last one? Did you have anything else to add? Okay,
I am
great.
complete.
Just want to make sure. Okay. 73. That's such a Boulder thing. Are you complete? Do you feel complete with this discussion? Okay. 7312 Island Circle. This is in Island Green. It's part of the Boulder Country Club. And there are not a ton of houses in this neighborhood. I think most of this was built for IBM execs. And we're looking at late 70s or early 80s vintage houses that are usually generously sized. And this is a 2-story, 4,300 square feet, 5 bedrooms, 5 baths, 2-car garage, and actually had been updated. So if you look at the photos, you'll see a pretty nicely buttoned up house. And one of the things that is pretty much mandatory if you're going to remodel is custom rails. People really don't like the old school railings. Like, that's a must. The dark trim. And this style of wood, these natural tones are popular with white backsplash, solid surfaces that are white. Of course, stainless steel or the appliances that have the same wood paneling on the front is popular. And of course, the biggest selling point is that it backs to the course, which even if you're not a golfer, you get the views and you get the sense of spaciousness. But you know what you also get, Hamish?
Golf balls? Lack of privacy.
Balls.
Yeah.
You get golf balls. And I just had dinner with a client and good friend, and they bought on a course, And he said, "Do you remember the list of questions that we sent the seller?" And this is a while ago. And I said, "No, I don't remember." He says, "One of those questions was, do you get hit by golf balls?" And that seller lied and said no. And we have buckets of golf balls that hit our house and land in our yard. And we've had to replace windows. We've had to chase golfers down the golf course. We've had golfers that have broken windows and refused to take any ownership of it. And some of these people have executive positions. We've had to literally send them nastygram letters to get them to pay for a broken window, but they still love the house. They're still lovely people. They were always there. Of course, they're lovely people. That hasn't changed. They're not mad at me, but the seller blatantly lied about the golf balls.
Dang. That bothers me just on a, hey, golf course, maybe have a policy or something for this happening.
Oh, they do. All golf courses have a policy, but it gets complicated. Right?
Yeah,
if you actually end up taking this to small claims, it could go either way. The judge could say you knew buying a house on the golf course that you were likely going to get golf balls. So one thing to think about, if you're a golfer, it's pretty obvious which homes are more likely to get hit. And it often involves, where is the tee box, right? Where are we teeing from, and where is it going to slice for the mediocre golfers like me? Which homes are more likely to get hit? Because hooks are far less common than slices, and certain orientations are very likely to get nailed. And this house is not that far along the course, but it's still a nice slice. It's in the slice zone, so I think golf balls are a real consideration.
So for this one, for me at least, the Boulder Country Club, in my mind's eye, has always been large homes, nice area, but relatively outdated. So it's really, I guess, nice to see this home this is contemporary. It looks great. It shows very well. I'm sure it's functional and modernized as it needs to be. So this kind of, to me, shows that Boulder Country Club has legs, right? Shocker. They're going to keep upgrading and stuff, but...
Oh, no, Hamish. I'm going to disagree. I see homes all the time in the country club that they haven't touched since the 70s.
Oh, they haven't. No, and that's why I still think of Boulder Country Club. It's nice to see this one, and it shows that. Yeah.
Yep. I hear what you're saying. It's nice to see that an owner actually did the updates. It might have been done as a flip. So let's talk about the deal itself. It was acquired by the
LLC.
Well, probably. It kind of looks flippy, right? And sure enough, it was acquired by Island. It was sold by Island Properties LLC, and the last transfer was was 2023 from the seller at that time into Island Properties LLC with $0 amount. So it looks like that person is in the LLC, right? They are the LLC. They transferred it in. Oh, this is a little confusing. The transfer date, the recording date of that $0 transfer was October 2024. But then
it's sold after.
The dates are wrong on because that person acquired it before they sold it, so that doesn't make any sense. But it 100% looks like it was sold by an LLC. And when you look at the seller's property disclosure, which they conveniently have online, it was the LLC that was selling it. And they said in the LLC that they acquired the property in 2023, which I guess is technically correct, even though it looks like it would not. It was a $0 transfer in the LLC, so that usually means the LLC is managed by the original owner, right? by the previous person, right? Okay, so they listed it at 3.2. It sold for 2.95. No additional disclosed concessions. Regular conventional fixed rate mortgage, so not a cash deal. And the property had been listed originally in... Oh, this is what's really confusing. Okay, let me back up. I think this is...
You gotta love the...
I'm going to go with the MLS. I'm going to go with the MLS. Yeah, the MLS says it was bought by the LLC for 1.47 in 2023. So I think that's correct. Okay. So the seller, the LLC, it may not have been the original people. The LLC bought it for 1.47 in the fourth quarter of 2023. They had it on the market by May of last year at 3.4, but they overpriced it. They withdrew it after a week, brought it back a month later at 3.395, so $5,000 below, but nothing happened. So they dropped it to just below $3 million in September, and by the end of the year they pulled it off entirely. So end of last year they'd killed it, the listing. They waited 2 months. They brought it back in February, and they listed it at 3.2. So here you have an example of a seller upping the price, $200,000 from the last listing, and they accepted an offer after over a month on market, and it closed at 2.95. So likely that buyer knew it was on the market and had been marketed at 2.995, and they managed to negotiate $45,000 below list, which is not bad. So, I think it's a great house. It's a good location. It's a fair deal, and it was a very profitable flip for Island Properties LLC, part of Island Green, obviously, not islands like it's tropical islands.
I'm thinking of like Prestige Worldwide or something. It's just these LLCs. Yeah. Okay.
Acme Corporation.
Right. That'd be a fun one. 3625?
3625 Nimbus Road is our third sale of the week. And this property just closed for $1,963,750, a very specific number. Not entirely sure why it was that granular. Had been listed at $2.25, $2,225,000. That was the last list price. And it is the only list price. They had originally listed it in August at that price, and they had that listing expired a couple of months later. They brought it back the same day it expired, so likely the same agent, and it went under contract. It was actually in withdrawn status when it went under contract, so somebody still found it. And let's see, did the agent double end? The agent did not double end. They're not even in the same brokerage. So market sale. And the reason I wanted to talk about this listing, so the discount's okay.
Yeah.
Right? You're looking at
11%.
$250,000 or something like that below list, roughly.
Yeah. 11%.
10%. Let's call it 10% below list as kind of a ballpark. What made this property really interesting is that it's a large agricultural property, over 10 acres of land on a well, with no other disclosed water rights, no resource rights. So
yeah, it's not like an ag well, right? It's like a potable water well.
It might have been an ag well. This is the part that the listing did not make entirely clear, and the fact that it has a 100 by 150 foot arena and a 6-stall barn with water and hay storage suggests that whether or not the well was used for ag purposes, whether or not it was ag use was allowed, it was clearly being used for that, likely being used for that. We don't know that for a fact. They could have had a cistern feeding the hay barn and the arena. So this type of hobby farm property, we have a client now looking for it, and one of the most important distinctions is really around the use of the water. And are you able to have horses? Are you able to grow a crop? And alfalfa is one of the largest cash crops in agricultural crops here in Colorado. It uses a ton of water, and water is becoming increasingly important. But I wouldn't buy this type of property without feeling confident that the water rights, whether in this case it's not a ditch, it's a well, to make sure that well actually supported the agricultural use that you intend to have on it. In which case, just under $2 million is a pretty good deal, particularly if you have horses. It actually reminds me of a client we haven't talked to in a long time, the dentist, who's into horses. This would have worked. The polo playing, I don't want to go any further than that. The client...
I don't know if I know.
Yeah, you do. We haven't talked to him in a long time because they put something under contract and then they bailed. But they really love horses. This actually would have worked for them. Other than the house itself is quite dated. It's a home from the 1970s that doesn't look like it has a lot of updates. But this location is so nice. Like you are
this
on
is
Nimbus
septic
Road.
too, right?
Yep, it has a septic.
Okay.
So you are you're on your way to Lyons, right? And it's on the east side, just past Neva Road, and far enough away from Foothills that it's a non-issue. You may have a dirt road, Nebo.
Your dirt road to get there, yeah.
Yeah, which kind of sucks, but you want that agricultural hobby farm, then you got to get used to having some dirt on your truck.
Yeah, with dirt roads, right? I mean, you've got an interesting setup for the mountain living, and then we've had a listing before where the neighbors kind of take responsibility or split the cost of grading and maintenance. It could,
the road
could be, yeah.
The road is half a mile away, and it has a 1,400-foot garage, complete and through permitting.
That thing's huge. Yeah.
So the plans, right? That's not built. Plans for a new home with a 1,400 square foot garage that's already through permitting. So if you wanted to, you could execute on that or not. The garage I would probably want to execute on right away, and the house build it later. But yeah, what an interesting property. I think it made a lot of sense, and this is one of those got to wait for the right buyer deals. But one that we'll keep in mind for future comps when we're looking for farm property like it for our client.
Yeah, those plains are cool. The area that seems to be largely like horse and agriculture and a little bit more rural.
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly hobby farms these days because the cost to actually grow in Boulder is getting exorbitantly high. But that hobby farm stuff is really nice, and the belt of green space and interplay of hobby farms and green and open space is really lovely. That pastoral landscape is something that, I don't know, sings to the heart of certain types of buyers, including myself.
Yeah. I can see it with the far off views of the Flatirons. I mean, that's just, and it's silent. Yeah. Anyhow, to suburbia.
To Blue Heron, off in Lafayette. 2551 Ginny Way is our next sale of the week. We have lovely clients who live in the neighborhood, really sweet people that we appreciated as buyers a few years ago, and ever since, this neighborhood has been on my radar as a good alternative to Indian Peaks, with pricing that is similar but privacy that's extraordinary and amenities that are really nice and a neighborhood feel that is difficult to replicate. So Blue Heron is a good choice if you are considering, say, Indian Peaks. And 2551 Ginny Way was not on the market long, which is not a surprise at all because buyers in the know how attractive this location is, as long as you're not up against the busy road, and this one is not. So it was listed at just under 4. It sold for 1.421, so slightly over list. There was a small concession, likely for an inspection issue or something like that. House built in the 90s, just under 5,000 square feet, plenty of bedrooms and baths, and has a nice, generous 3-car garage. Some of that landscaping looks a little overgrown, but the interior, if you look at the photos, has been nicely updated. So you can't get around the 90s architecture, but you can paint it in a way that is very appealing to current buyers. You can see brand new carpet, new flooring, mostly repainted interior. They didn't do anything with certain bathrooms other than maybe replace a faucet. But overall, they prepped it right for sale, other than it wasn't staged, right? They could have spent the money on staging and probably goosed the price a little more. But for a super hot location like Ginny Way, is
that virtual?
May not have needed it. What's virtual?
There's some staging, at least in the pictures that I've got.
Oh, I didn't see a lot of staging. Hold on. Most of the rooms look empty. Oh. Definitely. I guess the bedroom has the living room. I guess there is a little bit of staging. Okay, all right.
I mean, but it's almost 5,000 square foot home. Could you imagine paying the stage
all of that? Okay, fair enough. So it was staged, partially staged.
Also, last week we covered another Ginny Way, and it was up against the street. And that one I don't remember. What's that?
North 95th Street, the busy road.
Yeah. That one was 2587 Ginny Way. And I think it also went relatively quickly. So, yeah, this Blue Heron...
It had been on the market a long time. Last week we talked about it. It was the reason it sold for what it did, and because why it took that long was it was backing in 95th Street.
Oh, you're totally right. Yeah. No. Yeah. I'm getting incomplete listing history. Anyway, an example of further away from the busy street, the demand increases, and so on and so forth.
One of the things you should really pay attention to as a buyer is how long has this listing been on market, and not just this listing period, because it could be that there are factors that led it to be on market that are not anything wrong with the house. But if you see a pattern in the sales history, like the last 3 times it sold, it took 6 months, 9 months to sell. You're probably looking at a listing that may not have broad market appeal. You should at least put that in as a yellow flag to be investigated.
Yeah, definitely.
One day you'll go to sell it, and if you bought a weird house that no one really wants, other than you're looking for a buyer like you, and if your agent doesn't have the honesty to tell you that what you want is sort of like you're happy with this house, but future buyers are going to have an issue with it because of X, Y, or Z,
you're signing yourself up. Yeah.
Well, you might be disappointed when you go to sell. It's future frustration. Like maybe you get a big discount today and you're trading that for future frustration or less of a return in the future.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Blue Heron.
I once sold a house to people and they told me, well, actually, no, we didn't. They didn't buy it. We almost wrote an offer on it. And the reason they couldn't do it is because all the other houses around that house were so much better. And they're like, we can't do it. This house, I can't drive by these other houses every day and not be jealous of these other people. I don't want to be jealous of my neighbors every single day I come home. That was
I'm reminded of, like the one house that decides to never sell in the middle of a development, and you see like the pictures of it. Have you seen those? It's like, a developer bought this huge block of land, but the homeowner, the only one in that block of land, decided not to sell. Yeah, it'd be like that. Like, I'm coming home to my 1970s, and around me are like all these new contemporary homes. Like,
we have a client,
but then it could go the other way. Yeah,
we have a client who loves their farmhouse that's right in the middle of a development, and there's nothing like it other than this farmhouse. And it's really cool. It's got a giant lot and a septic system right in the middle of a housing development. Yeah. It's hilarious. Yeah, I love that house. They're great clients.
You'll have to.
But it was really quite an unusual find. All right, our last one is really I don't entirely know what to think of this. This might have been an unintentional California style listing. 2315 Forest Ave. It was on the market on March 13th. It went under contract almost right away with a pending status, no backup offers wanted, and it sold for $165,000 over list, cash, closed in 19 days. And why? The question is, why would this house sell so fast? And the answers, I think, are that it was either unintentionally or intentionally underpriced. And it happens to be on a pretty decent sized lot in a location where there is a lot of demand. Buyers are snapping up these houses and adding a second story. So it's super livable, super desirable spot. We have some clients nearby who have never indicated a desire to sell their house, and they love this neighborhood. So that's what it looks like happened here. The house itself is sort of like...
you're a fan of this location, yeah.
I think it's a good... Well, I mean, it's super easy to get to everywhere in Boulder you want to get to and do it on a bicycle. You're south of Iris.
You're away from the students.
It's very easy to bike over to the Alpine Balsam Ideal Market shopping area. You can get to Whole Foods on a bike in like minutes. Like, it's super convenient to everything. So it's about as central Boulder as you can get. You're not up against open space, but you've got some parks nearby. And if your kids go to Columbine Elementary School, it's right there. So there's a lot of pluses for this house.
Yeah.
2,500 square feet. it's a ranch with a basement, but it's not your typical ranch. It has some modifications.
It's also got some egress in the basement, which is nice to see as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's a functional house. 1.1
funky vanity in the bathroom.
It does. Okay, 1.1 doesn't sound like a discount price to me, and this agent is not known to do that, and he's extremely competent. We've done multiple deals with this listing agent. I should just name him Eric Boy. So he's not prone to like unintentional or intentional California strategy. I think 1.1 sounds about right. So somebody went 160 grand over, and it's a little bit of a. I mean, it's a great location. But it's still a little bit of a puzzle for why that much more. And I don't really know what else to say about it other than, there's one of these like okay moments. Interesting that this one got so much attention. Other than what we've seen in this under 1.2 range, right? This is one of those that I asked when we started this podcast and we looked at the 800 to 1.2 zone. This wasn't in the data set because it sold for 1.26.
Yeah.
Right? This is actually now bumping up to more than we're now 6 out of 10 that were at list or more that started life in the 800 to 1.2 range. So I think that's a very interesting data point. Decent house, surprising that it got that much attention. But that's what we're seeing anecdotally, so maybe it shouldn't be that much of a surprise.
There's Forest Ave. I think it's going to get updated.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Over time, for sure. And, sometimes there's also local factors that cause a buyer to have that one. Like, it might be right next door to their family. Yeah. And they may be affluent enough where paying $100,000 more than list, or in this case, $165,000 more than list, can be
Eric's
justified.
stoked. Yeah.
I'm sure he's thrilled. Yeah, he's thrilled for his client. I mean, he's a very successful agent. One deal is not swaying his personal year, but I'm sure is really happy for how it worked out for his client. So a very interesting data point for this kind of ranch-style house with a basement, houses that are easy to add a second story to. This is a house that is on Forest Ave. It's south-facing. The one thing that, and it's not on the corner, so corners are subject to 2 front yard setbacks. So this is a pretty good house for, like, if you wanted to build a second story on it, pop the top, and not, at a reasonable price. Like the dirt alone plus the structure could be worth 126. Sure.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I mean, my gut says it's a little rich, okay, but I could talk myself into it because of how crappy the $1 million houses have been in the city of Boulder. So, sure. All right, it's time for us to end that segment, Hamish, and move on to our very brief segment on shameless self-promotion. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to launch in here. House Einstein has existed since 2013, and we've had very minimal marketing to grow the brokerage. Typically, there's an agent a year or so that reaches out and inquires about joining us, and the answer is usually no. And the reason is that we are a very happy group of professionals who work together. Our structure is much more like a law firm than most brokerages that will take anybody who can fog a mirror and have a real estate license. Some brokerages have production target numbers and other things, but the majority of brokerages are happy to take anybody, and that's a dirty secret in the real estate world. We have just been quite happily chugging along, but we've reached a point where it would make sense for the brokerage to deepen its bench. And so I want to mention that. This is a little piece of self-promotion for the brokerage itself, but also with a big caveat that it's not every agent that's a good fit, and it's a decision that is not just made by me, it's made by the entire team. And it's a decision
and not a decision made easily. Yeah.
And not easily at all. A very difficult decision. But if you're a listener of this podcast and you're enjoying it, you might be a potential fit for our brokerage. And if you're thinking about trying to find the right brokerage for you as an agent, and you think House Einstein might be that right agent, feel free to reach out to me. Just keep in mind that we're looking for somebody that's not a brand new agent. We're looking for an agent that understands our professional standards, integrity, authenticity, care for the community, and also we really have to work well together because we're such a small shop. So if you are in our footprint anywhere from North Denver suburbs through the southern part of Fort Collins, you could be in Longmont, you could be in Lafayette. We'd love to hear from you if you have been listening to this pod and want to have a conversation about how we might collaborate and work together with you joining the House Einstein team. Keep in mind, it would be a multi-month process with many interviews to make sure it's a really good fit, because we don't take people easily. We hire very slowly at the House Einstein brokerage. So I wanted to mention that.
Good promo.
Anything you want to add to that?
It's not a decision made easily, and I'll just say that. But yeah, I'm personally excited for the bench to get deepened, so to speak, and I think we will find some more people, and I'm excited to see that, and also what House Einstein looks like in a couple years.
Yeah. I mean, a few years ago, before your time, Hamish, I was much more open to agents joining the team, and we made some mistakes in that. And now I'm following the Oprah rule, and that is, if it's not a full body yes, it has to be a no. And that full body is not just my body, it's everyone else on the team.
The S-body corp. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the news.
So we're still here. I think, and I don't know why I'm bringing in the Iran topic this week and last week, but I mean, we are recording this on the 8th of April. Yesterday was the 7th, with the infamous Truth Social post that personally put me in a little bit of an existential crisis. So I think our show note says, Iran, are we still here? I think we're still here. We made it. A 2-week ceasefire, or so to speak. But on the subject, I watched this YouTube video the other day talking about kind of the delay in oil shipments, whereas these tankers take so long to reach the destination. Like, we really haven't started to see the true cost of oil increase. I mean, sure, it has at the pumps, but the supply, so it hasn't quite shut down.
Well, most of the supply wasn't coming to the United States, so there's production timelines before the cost of that input is felt by American consumers. But one thing I think it's important to mention, let me just kind of give a backdrop for when people listen to this podcast months or years from now.
Yeah.
This was a Cuban Missile Crisis level problem. And just like with our earlier topic of inspection negotiations, playing hardball chicken, you shouldn't make demands or stake a position that you're not willing to take. And there have been a couple of extensions that Donald Trump gave to the Iranians. And then there was a lot of chatter about taco, that Trump always chickens out, which is probably not helpful to somebody who already has a large ego to hear that, right? Because now he emotionally is feeling pushed into this, and there were signs that we weren't just talking about bridges and power plants hit conventionally. There were signs that the phrasing, things he said, that were deeply concerning. Civilization-ending commentary. And then those on the sidelines saying, well, Trump always chickens out, which pushes him in more aggressively to this is where we're going to land. And I honestly breathed the deepest sigh of relief when I saw that we had agreed on a 2-week ceasefire. I'm sure it'll be bumpy. The market will have gyrations, the stock market, but we got to an off-ramp from a really horrible decision that I think Trump was willing to make. I think he was ready to hit power plants and bridges, even if it killed human shields who had been placed there by the Iranians. I think he was going to do it. And I'm so grateful that the Pakistanis and the Chinese and other countries were able to facilitate an off-ramp to a disastrous situation. And today we're seeing all sorts of negative comments about Trump's negotiation skills, which I think is fine. Everyone's entitled to an opinion. I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. I want to make that abundantly clear. But you ask yourself the before and after of these scenarios, okay? And there's no number you can put on the loss of human life. But let's just put that aside for a moment and say, okay, before this, the Iranians had nuclear ambitions. Their leverage was Hezbollah and Hamas that they were funding. And that's all they'd been isolated for 47 years. And that's all that was happening, right? Their ability to get what they wanted was largely based on supporting violent extremist organizations and declaring death to America, right? And they were not completely, but largely economically isolated, just like North Korea. And these pariah states are incredibly dangerous to our world. So now what do we have? Well, they have the Strait, and they can charge $1 to $2 million or whatever number they want to. Like, there's that scene in The Godfather.
I think they're doing $2 million, and they're charging it in a yuan.
There's a scene in The Godfather where the 5 families get together, and they're having a discussion, and one of the family heads is upset that the Godfather has all the judges and politicians in his pockets, and he says, "Look, we need to get into this business." And Donald Trump, the Godfather, can certainly charge for their services. And then he says, "We are not communists after all." And so I'd much rather the Iranians are charging $2 million a boat than the Iranians are funding Hezbollah and Hamas. And I'd much rather Iran.
You don't think they're still doing that?
I think that that's going to be part of the deal, Hamish, that's being negotiated. Is that in lieu of funding those extremist organizations, and because we will remove the sanctions that have existed for 47 years.
Yeah, those got removed, I think, already, right?
We're going to pull out the sanctions. That's huge. And for those people that are out there saying, "Oh, we gave up sanctions for nothing," no, we want Iran to not have sanctions. We want Iran to be in the World Economic Order
prosperous,
and have a lot more to lose than what? Right? Like, then the threat. Their leverage was the threat to annihilate Israel and other countries with nuclear weapons that are coming in the future that supposedly we're weeks away from for the last 2 decades. And now they actually have
war of attrition strategy that they've been planning on, right? Where they have like extremely cheaper munitions and everything.
That's not what we want either. We want Iran to be part of the global economic order. Whether or not the United States is leading that global economic order is another discussion. But we want North Korea. We want Cuba. Yeah. Like, these embargoes really just hurt civilians. So it's at some point we want Iran to be back in the fold. And if this is what it takes, then I actually don't think it's a lose-lose. If they're using the funds from the Strait to rebuild their society, we restart some sort of trade with Iran. I mean, they're brilliant people. They're incredibly well educated. It's an ancient civilization. I would love to go visit Iran someday. So, I mean, we'll see when the deal is finally inked what it actually looked like. But at this point, I'm just grateful we're not in the middle of bombing campaigns to destroy their power plants and their bridges.
2 weeks, and we'll see if the ceasefire holds. Right?
We'll see if the ceasefire holds, and I really hope that those people that are out there writing articles that are just designed to embarrass or trigger the president of the United States just stop and think about the bigger picture. Is it really
unfortunately,
beneficial?
we live in a world where an article might very much influence the president as well, right? Like,
but in a negative. That's my point. But in a negative way, do we want to write things that inflame this person to bad decision making? Mm-hmm. He's going to be our president either until he passes or he terms out.
Yeah, you don't think he's getting 25th?
I don't think it's going to happen. No.
Yeah, me either.
I don't know. In the past, our politicians have acted in the best interest of our country. When they removed Richard Nixon, they didn't destroy our country removing Richard Nixon. right? Like they got him to agree to resign.
I mean, that was bipartisan too, wasn't it? Or no,
Yeah.
he resigned.
But in the past,
yeah,
politicians have acted for country ahead of party. And I really hope we get back to that. And I also hope that some of our dirt writing, journalists, which some of them are really like writing real trash. I hope they just stop. Like, can we stop with the trash articles? We don't need to write, self-aggrandizing or aggrandizing articles about this guy either, our president. But we don't need to constantly like destroy or undermine America's position in everything we do. It's just getting to be exhausting.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm not saying anything after that. We don't have
I mean, like, I don't. There's parts of things where I don't know enough as well. But like, I'm with you, man. I honestly, on the whole like freedom of speech and press thing, like, write whatever you want. I wish that we didn't have such a, I don't know if emotional is the word or whatever, but individual who can be goaded or influenced by public opinion so easily to, whereas like I also don't think it's beneficial at all to be like parading around Taco when the crazy fellow might actually do it.
He might do it.
Like, there's serious risk to that. I don't think the reality this shouldn't be a reality to begin with, but here we are.
Well, he's willing to do things that are not popular. And this Iran war was incredibly unpopular with both sides of the aisle. So
my grandparents voted for him because he said no more wars.
Well, at least he
didn't. It's just
one
of those things,
He appears to not be sucking us into a forever war. We're not spending 8 years in Afghanistan and 10 years in Iraq. Like, it looks like this was over.
I mean, knock on wood. 3
months, but we'll see.
Yeah, knock on wood.
We didn't invade Venezuela. Yeah. We decapitated it. We didn't invade Iran so far. He's leaving the power structures in place. And that was one of the biggest mistakes in Iraq. I think that our country learned from that. That firing the Ba'ath Party and not giving them jobs was really bad. They became the people that we were fighting on the ground because you removed their income stream. They're gonna fight whoever.
Iraq, I don't know a whole lot on, but I'm with you so far. All right. I just can't have a conversation with you. Yeah.
All right. Tweet.
Iraq wasn't the weapons of mass destruction that never existed, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Those pesky things. Anyway.
All right, so let's talk about local news and the goat trail fire last night that woke up half of Boulder with
So did you get an alert?
Off. I did not, but it was the first thing I saw this morning was Watch Duty alerted me, but the city of Boulder did not call me. Or Boulder County's emergency. I'm on the list, but I didn't get notified because we weren't in the evac area, which I appreciate because I've been sleep deprived, and the last thing I needed to do was wake up to hear about a fire, because if I did, I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are hundreds of people, maybe thousands, that had that unpleasant experience last night of being woken up by emergency alerts on their phones or watch duty, or sirens telling them it's time to evac because there's a fire. And the latest is called the Goat Trail Fire. I know the Goat Trail well. It's right out of Newlands, sort of central Newlands, and then hiking right into the Sanitas system. Excellent little side trail. But in the middle of the night last night, there was a fire, and it sounds like it was from an abandoned campsite.
I don't know if you've read it. Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever run into it yourself, Hamish. I have. I've been out there in the woods hiking and stumbled into a hot fire, a campfire that was abandoned but was burning with nobody present. And I ended up dumping all my drinking water on it because I was astounded that somebody would be that reckless. But here's the thing, Hamish. There's technical things we could do, right? In addition to potentially increasing the penalties, we could easily be flying drones. As you know, thermal imaging is really good. And we could be flying drones that are automated that just cover Boulder County western open space when fire conditions are high and look for illegal campsites and dispatch authorities when there's high risk to human life and structures because somebody is having an illegal campsite in the middle of the night in Boulder open space.
That's the thing is like, this Reddit post is like just complete conjecture. Goat Trail, like, is this a camp spot? Because it looks like just right off where people just walk and stuff.
I mean, it's a perfect
I'm sure
spot.
like it's.
I've done a night hike there. There's a couple of spots that would be great to have a little secret campfire. If you're into recreational substances, do some recreational substances, and then walk away, right? Mm-hmm. Leaving it burning because you're tripping or whatever. So I don't think it was somebody trying to stay warm. It might have been a bunch of teenagers or college kids that went up there in the middle of the night and had a little party.
Smoked
some weed and drank some drinks and hung out with their friends and then went home. So flying, I mean, I know that we're not into surveillance, okay? Like, I know you hate surveillance in particular, but overnight drone flights
types
that are just specifically looking for hotspots that are burning when conditions are like they are right now.
If it can be incredibly regulated and all sorts of other things, I'm all for it. But where it's no holds barred and data sharing with wherever and data leaks and stuff, this is where I started to raise the alarm.
Sure.
Also where it's circumventing city council and getting past
flock
certain
cameras
protections.
You're not a fan of. But thermal cameras that are looking for open burning fires or abandoned fires, campfires in our open space, how much could that system possibly cost?
Oh, you wait and see, right? It's government spending. But no, I'm with you.
Even if it cost $1 million, okay? Contrast that with that building that we didn't really need at Alpine Balsam for city staff.
Yeah, right. No, I'm on board. And like, not to mention, I think too, like, people don't realize just how much water is required to put out a campfire. Like, those embers stay hot. Like, bring a shovel and bury that thing, and then even then, it's not enough. I'm on board. Like, it'd be cool to have some sort of thermal system. You could, if you wanted to go crazy, and with it's like $250 per kg to launch a satellite now. You put a little geosynchronous satellite up there with thermal imaging, and you can get the whole freaking Boulder, baby. But I just really want to shout out to the first responders. I mean, we had the Bluebell fire, we've got this Goat Trail fire, and everything, and like, these are getting nipped in the bud, and that's like outstanding. The response has been insane. I think everybody's on high alert, and we're not in for an easy fire season, but so far we are just on top of it as a people.
The operating budget for the city of Boulder is just under $400 million. Longmont has an operating budget estimated at $280 million. Claude is doing this analysis, so take this all with a grain of salt. I've not verified any of these things. And it's difficult to ascertain what Longmont's operating budget is because they also have electric and broadband revenue that we don't have. Mm-hmm. Right? So they're operating on a utility and for electric and class leading fiber internet, right? So Longmont is more efficient and has revenue generation that we don't have. So it's a little tricky to isolate it, but there's no argument that we spend more. And Claude says it's roughly $775 more per resident in their total budgetary terms. Everybody who lives here is spending $775 more than you would be spending in Longmont. And what are we getting for it? And if there are ways to intelligently protect our city, we should be investing in that. And instead of getting into arguments over whether we should be sister cities with various places and eating up council time. And this is one of the clear and obvious places where the city should be investing in not just hardening or forcing residents to harden, but also actively preventing during times of extreme drought with technology that exists today. And you're absolutely right. Satellite's even better than flying some drones.
I don't know if that's actually feasible, but like,
I'm
also
sure
to say like, I'm banned from flying a drone in national forest land because if a drone goes down and that battery catches fire, you have a fantastic forest fire. So there's risk too to using, battery powered drones and stuff in a fire environment to begin with. I mean, those motors get hot enough to burn you after flying for a bit anyway. in super fire weather situations, you've got high winds where a drone would be unlikely to stay up to begin with. I do find, like, this is a little bit disingenuous, right? Does Boulder investigate who starts these wildfires? Yeah, you can look it up. It's on their website. Like, did you want to Google that, or are we being a crank?
I included that because it's the sentiment, right? There's a growing amount of frustration with our community leadership in actively preventing situations like this. And, I'll go even further. I'm not talking about... I don't even know if the system exists, but it seems like a no-brainer for the system to exist. We invest in drones already for the police force and other departments.
So heavily, yeah.
Why can we not have drones flying that go to known campsites, literally are on an automated schedule to fly, and every hour there's a drone that flies over that is taking photos and actively looking for hotspots in known likely hotspots. Maybe even custom tailors it to the wind direction, right? Like we know that the wind's blowing this way, so we're less concerned if it's here, but we're really concerned if it's here. There are things we can be doing, and we're not even actively talking about it. And I just feel frustrated by that.
One thing too is, like, I think it was like 2 weeks ago. It was right after the fire on 93 in Coal Creek Canyon. Driving up there, and I'm like, top of mind, I think it was like an 85-degree day. This was still during winter, so it couldn't have been 2 weeks ago. And sure enough, the car in front of me is flicking their cigarette butts out the window, and like I can see them sparking and shit on the road. And I'm like, are you kidding me, man? Like, you're here in the same exact world. Like, ash that thing in your car. Like, it's I'm sorry, but do that. Get an ozone thing, treat your car, but like, what are you doing? Like, literally flicking ashes in a tinder dry forest as we pass like a burn scar. Like, I'd love to see more outreach too, specifically on, like, how is it not obvious? I mean, California, those huge fires that hit not too long ago, I mean, some of those were intentionally started as like arson, which is outrageous. And like, yeah, I'm all for strict like punishment and stuff too. I think up Chautauqua, I guarantee you, like, so many people go up there just to smoke a joint and then come back down. And it's like, you just cannot do that right now. Like, it is too dry. There's just no world where that, like, even if you've got a water bottle to ash the thing in, that's great, but you're still like, a breeze catches that and you could start it. Like, the risk is just too high. So I don't know. I'm frustrated. I share the sentiment. I just want to put credit too on the fact that we have such quick responses and we're able to jump on these things. I think Marshall Fire was a huge wake up. Same with the Cameron Peak Fire, and then what we've seen in California too. Like, I think everybody's on edge. Makes sense that there's some crankiness about it. Yeah,
there should be, and deep concern, and I really hope the politicians are listening and actively start to address this stuff proactively, not waiting for the next fire to be a wake-up call. And it's going to happen again. It's inevitable. And there are ways that we can reduce the risk. So we shall see. All right, last news item. The Dark Horse auction update. If you're not familiar with this story, you should know that the Dark Horse has closed its doors finally. After several months of telling us they're closing the doors, they finally did. It was one of Boulder's last remaining dive bars. Had been around for 50 plus years and deeply beloved for its environment, its sort of throwback. Many college students, legally or illegally, enjoyed the environment of the Dark Horse over many years. And so last time we were there was even a high school reunion going on for Boulder High students that were now in their 60s.
I think class of 77.
Yeah, remembering the good old days in the Dark Horse. But so many of the items have found their way to Roller Auctions, which is a Colorado-based auction company. And there's an auction specific to the Dark Horse. And if you look at that auction, you'll find that many of the most iconic things are missing. There's no doors. The most iconic thing in the Dark Horse were those bathroom doors. They're not in there.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a mystery why so many things are missing. But Hamish, I did find something that I think would be great for maybe a gift, or maybe at our office.
Is it the gigantic top hat?
Like, this is on auction. There is...
That's beautiful.
A toilet bowl
with light.
With a light that is currently... 2 people are watching it, but there's nobody has bid on the toilet bowl with a light, and it looks right out of like a prison toilet.
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
there's also a high tank toilet.
Wonka.
It looks really grody. Like, this is really gross. But there are some interesting things like taps. There's a barrel butter
mannequin
churn.
parts.
I mean, it looks like...
Is that a boat? Go back. I've been looking at boats.
You have not been looking at boats.
It
is an amusement park bumper boat ride hull.
It's perfect
so
for Stanley.
What are people actually bidding on? Let's see. Sort by high to low bids. So there's highest
a bunch of
number...
buggies.
22 people have bid on the horse-drawn hearse funeral carriage. And 24 people have bid on the CU Buffalo.
I'm going to put the link
painting.
in the description for you listeners.
Yeah. 17 people have bid on the Chamois Ram shoulder-mounted taxidermy. And the clawfoot tub, which actually I think is really neat. It looks like it's copper. Has 13 bids. Is currently $45. Is the top bidder. So the bids are not attracting a ton of interest at the moment. It does look painted. You're right. It looks like it's in really rough condition, but for a playhouse or a second home, having some tchotchke from the Dark Horse could be interesting. I like the beer signs. The beer signs only have 3 bids so far, and they're at $7. Likely this is going to shoot up. There's 6 more days to get in on this auction. If this stuff interests you, go for it. But you'll be disappointed if you're looking for
those doors.
You'll be a little disappointed if you're looking for those iconic doors, because they're not here and there's no explanation given. I think the best case scenario is that the Dark Horse is reopening and they've kept some items to bring to the new one. But it also could be that a private individual made the owner an offer and did not want it to go to auction and locked them down ahead of time.
That makes sense. There's a lot of vintage books. I wonder if there's some first editions or something there as well. Neat.
All right, time
Good news
to talk about our Carveout items, Hamish. What have you got with beautiful places?
Mine is generally just, I think for those who moved here, and I'm not including myself in this, and Osman, actually you fit the bill, it's easy to get out and enjoy beautiful vistas and the open space and things, and honestly probably for people who are native to here too. But I've been trying to make a more conscious effort of doing that. And I mean, I can plan hour-long drive and probably stop at like 5+ points of vistas, all different varying views, plains, mountains, foothills. And it's just, we live in a gorgeous area, and I don't know. It's a small carve-out, but just making more of a conscious effort of getting out there and seeing pretty things. That's pretty much it, man.
Where are you going next? What's your...
there is...
What's on your beauty
list? It's off
list?
93. It looks over El Dorado Canyon. I'll probably go there, but I do want to do that Coal Creek loop again. I'll probably go for a drive and do that at some point. See how we go.
Cool.
Yeah. It's a light one.
All right.
Stay tuned for more solar updates, but I thought I'd give you guys a break.
All right. Mine is on Substack, and I'm not entirely sure why, but when I first heard about Substack, I wasn't really that impressed. I was like, why would you... Like, there's so many other readers. Like, blogging has peaked and fallen off. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me why I would pay for a bunch of subscription newsletters. Most newsletters are free, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then somehow it came back across my radar, and I spent more time on the site. And I think it was from our friend Dave who sent us a Substack called Forget the Vase.
That's right.
Is that the name of it? Forget the Vase?
I think so.
Forget the Vase.
I know that it was
no. It's Don't Worry About the Vase. That's the name of it. And that's Ziv Moshewitz's Ziv, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Moshewitz's Substack, which has been phenomenal. It's really deep thinking. But what I discovered was with the app and with the website that the quality of the feed is night and day different than the quality of the feed I've been getting on any other social media site, because it's not really a social media site. And it has photography and poetry as well, with no advertising, that is extremely high quality. And so the other way it came at me was I was in a photographer's meetup, and I asked a pro photographer sitting next to me how he is getting his stuff out. And he said Substack, which is the second reason I was like triangulating back on Substack. And when I realized that the quality of the content with photography and poetry and the thoughtfulness of the newsletters, the caliber of the people sharing their newsletters, and new people I was discovering, was like rediscovering Instagram for the first time when it first hit, 10 years ago. It was so high quality, and there's a word for how services online trend toward really bad, and I'm not going to say the word because you have to beep it out again, but it's do you want to say the word? You could beep it out.
It's end gratification, but the opposite of that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not end gratification. It's the opposite
end
of that.
badification.
End badification with some profanity mixed in. But Substack is like a rediscovery of such high quality content without the advertising. So I have started to put random things on Substack. And I've also started to put the intro section to the House Einstein newsletter on Substack. Even though it's already on MailChimp, I also want it to be more easily discovered. So I'm going to go ahead and start publishing that piece. I can't talk about the active listings. That's the segment that has to be under an email subscription. In theory, this is under an email subscription. Like I could create that barrier, but I'd rather separate the two for now. And I mean, we pay for MailChimp, but we don't necessarily have to pay for MailChimp. So the reason I brought all this up is that if that interests you, check out my Substack. You'll easily find me by my name. And there's only 2 things on there right now. But I intend to start publishing more creative and thoughtful pieces outside of the newsletter. It's not just going to be the newsletter. So check out my Substack. And I'm excited by Substack, too. It's refreshing in terms of the quality. And if you like what people are writing, go ahead and support them with financially. Support people that are creating content directly and not limited to the content that the algorithm only wants you to see. And so it feels far less manipulative and much richer and higher quality than you'll find anywhere on social media.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I'm going to check it out. And then my sister-in-law, I think, has experience with Substack and emerged from MailChimp. So I might reach out to her and see if she's got any notes or anything.
Yeah, maybe we go from MailChimp to Substack. I'm not against it, given how much MailChimp is charging us, and the fact that Intuit bought MailChimp. And Intuit, in my personal experience dealing with Intuit, is one of the worst companies ever. Horrible experience dealing with them. So anyways, that's Substack, and I think it's a good spot, Hamish, to wrap up our House Einstein podcast. So. What do you say?
Yeah. We do have a listing. I think I was just going to footnote it. 544 Liter Circle in Louisville is coming up. It's very open, and I mean, I actually really love this house. It's a split layout. 3 bedrooms on the upper, 2 bathrooms, and then a nice...
3 bathrooms?
It's 2 bathrooms on the upper.
Oh, 2 bathrooms on the upper, yeah. 3 bathrooms total. Yeah.
And then the lower, it's like a half basement, right? Because it's above grade. But the basement's fantastic. It gets a lot of really good light. And then there's storage beyond, and the backyard is this insane showpiece. It's huge, and there's all sorts of plants and water features, and fantastic things. Keep your eye out. It'll be on our website. And 544 Leader Circle, Louisville.
I just want to mention what I think are the key selling points of this house. And one of them is the sense of spaciousness you get when you walk in the door. So a lot of multi-level houses, tri-levels, feel tight. This does not feel tight at all. It's just under, I think, 3,000 square feet. But it also has hidden areas of storage that really make it much more usable. Like, it's got some really funky and interesting things about this house that are attractive. I'm not saying funky like weird. I'm saying funky like, wow, that's an unusual. You don't see that in most houses. And the backyard is an oasis. It's like secret garden level backyard. It's massive, and it's got some really interesting landscaping to it, some mature plantings. There's some outbuildings to the property. There's a bike path directly behind it. It's on a quiet cul-de-sac. Awesome house, reasonably priced. It has not been thoroughly updated, but new paint and carpet. It looks great inside. It could use a few things. The kitchen's in decent condition. Some of the baths could use an update. Like, there's no perfect house, but it's also not priced like it's a flip. Because it's not. It's going to be priced right. It's an amazing house, and it'll be on the market by the time you hear this podcast.
Yeah. All right. Do you want me to wrap it up? I haven't wrapped up in a long time.
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
All right, dear listener, you have reached the end of the podcast at about 2 hours and 17 minutes. As we've talked about at the start of the podcast, if you'd like to hear our opinions on active listings, the pricing, some caveat emptor, some due diligence, the House Einstein newsletter is available on our website. You can sign up there. We can't talk about active listings anywhere else. We have to get it through the gated entry, but we promise never to contact you without your consent. Beyond that, check out our social media. We've got some YouTube videos coming out the pipeline. We're on Instagram, Facebook, X, Blue Sky, LinkedIn. Osmond's on Substack. And I'm posting to TikTok too, so we're getting some traction there as well. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we love seeing the comments. There's a couple I still need to respond to, but hearing the feedback in the real world, seeing the comments online, our listenership on Apple Podcasts is increasing more and more. So fantastic seeing that. And we've got 3 reviews on Apple Podcasts. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, leave us another one and make it 5 stars. And thanks so much, everybody. And take care.
Bye-bye.